talk to.
Hey,
I would love to. We're also an indie publisher, so don't hit the button.
Yeah, I hit the button. Sorry about that. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning into the Banff Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty, and here we are today talking about various things, including sci-fi and gaming in sci-fi. We got with us today a panel including Christopher McLaughlin. How you doing, Chris?
I am great. I've been off work the last couple of days, so I am completely zen slacker. This should be fun.
Nice. Sitting next to Chris in our palatial BAM Studios broadcast Zeppelin is Jacob Blackman. How you doing, Jacob?
Hello, glad to be here.
Yeah, glad you could join us. Don't forget, Thursday is taco night on the BAM broadcast Zeppelin, so hope you're hungry. And sitting next to Jacob in the studio is Walt. Walt, how you doing?
Good afternoon. Now that I'm here. I have to confess that when you guys called, I was walking the dog. Had him on the big loop to kind of keep him calm during the show, like I've been doing, and I was like, "Oh crap, I got to get home." So I kind of misappropriated something, like a police officer friend who gave me a ride real quick.
Wow! Shit. Wow! You committed fraud to come make the podcast?
No, I told him. I said, "Hey man, I got a comic book show I got to get on. Can you hook a brother up? I'll buy you a coffee later." He's like, "For the public," and he stepped on the gas really hard.
Now, as a guy raised on '70s cop shows, I totally see you guys driving on the sidewalk with the light that you have to put on the dashboard.
The greatest thing was when I got in the car. He got the dog. I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That sucker sticks his head out the window." He's like, "I don't have a canine sticker on my car. If my supervisor sees me, I'm gonna get punked."
Oh.
Walt leads a much more interesting life than many of us.
Not anymore. I mean, these days I'm kind of vanilla. It's kind of sad.
Last but not least, Mr. Ed Jowett. How you doing, Ed?
I'm great. Thank you very much.
And what's the name? Go ahead. Sorry.
Just said thanks for having me back.
Oh, thanks for being back. Remind our listeners of the name of your company and what you guys do.
So I am the head of games and managing director of Shades of Vengeance. We produce tabletop role-playing games, card games, and comics.
All right, cool.
In various volumes.
Cool. And we're going to be talking sci-fi, gaming sci-fi. And I like to do giveaways every once in a while because someone told me it's a good way to promote your podcast, and they were probably lying. But anyway, we're giving away free stuff this podcast. We're giving away White Star Galaxy Edition, which is the sci-fi variant for Swords and Wizardry, if you're into the OSR, Old School Revolution gaming. So we'll be giving away a free PDF for that. If you want to enter the drawing, Walt, what's the email we use for that?
It's superscbr@gmail.com.
Yep, just hit that email with White Star giveaway in the subject line. In a couple weeks, we'll shoot one lucky listener a free PDF because we're solid, generous, salt of the earth motherfuckers here on the BAM Podcast.
Do we get promotional copies?
I'll work that out. I'll work that out.
Wow, we get swag for being on this show. All right,
damn straight.
I guess we do now. I'll get some jumpsuits made up for you guys.
I'm just happy you let me navigate the Zeppelin.
That's fun, isn't it? We can't buzz any of those cow pastures anymore. We scared them last time. They're still trying to comfort them after. Anyway. So gaming in sci-fi settings. I think we talked about this before. Walt, if I recall, your favorite sci-fi show right now is Killjoys?
Oh my God, I love Killjoys.
Yes.
Yes, you can. And the thing about Killjoys that makes it a lot of fun is you can tell that these guys are also gamers. They have to be, because number one, the first season that this show came out, right? It's a show about bounty hunters, and Killjoys is it's a pejorative term. It's what you call somebody when you know, it's like calling, like back in the day when you called a police officer, "You dirty flatfoot," you know. I mean, it's just a nasty thing to call somebody, but it's been in use for so long now that they even call themselves that. But the story centers around this one crew of bounty hunters that operates around the Quad, which is a planet and 4 moons, and they take contracts to for various things. It could be there are different levels of contracts, and each contract has its own specific purpose, but only certain bounty hunters of certain levels or experience can get all of the types of contracts that you can get. So a lot of crews will lock onto one with a senior experience so that they can get all those difficult bonds. But it's a great show. It took a twist around season 2, and now they've gone into more of like real deep sci-fi. In the beginning, it was hunt the bad guy of the week, but there's kind of this plot in the background, and now the plot in the background is the main thing of what's going on.
You get some of that weird, trippy, spiritual stuff that's sort of
like alien body snatchers stuff. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I love the show.
I don't know if it's a fair way to describe it, but I pitched to people as that there is a TV show that sort of only followed the bounty hunters in Star Wars, but was sort of set in the Firefly universe.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put. That's a really good way to put it.
And if all the bounty hunters were really attractive people, because it's on cable, but,
and filmed in Canada. So
yes.
Canadians are just preternaturally attractive. I had something about the cold air up there. Shame Andrew Collis isn't on here to bless us with his Canadian presence, but
I believe he's working.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him. And now Ed, you are a fan of this ebook series, which looks to be incredibly popular from the reviews and just the sheer number of sequels I'm seeing on Amazon. But I confess I haven't heard of it before. Could you give us a little introduction and tell us about that series?
Yeah, I'll be totally honest. I had not heard of it before. One of the others in my team actually came to me and said, "Hey, Ed, I know this writer. He's a sci-fi writer. He writes a military sci-fi universe. He's based in the UK. I think you're gonna love what he does." And I went away and read him, and I was hooked. I'll be honest. So this universe, it sort of the novels start.
We should probably give a name and an author here.
Sorry. It's the series of books is called Battle Cruiser Alamo, and there are a number of spin-off sort of branches and so on. But the main series is they're all called Battle Cruiser Alamo, and I believe there are 38 books in that series at the moment. The guy's prolific, to say the least.
And that the guy being Arthur Richard Tongue.
Richard Tongue, yeah, really, really nice guy.
He probably developed empathy from being teased so much in junior high. Sorry, I'm trying to be funny. Please continue, Ed.
I have no idea how to respond to that. That was a cutting insult. I'll be honest.
Well, no, it's a funny. Please continue. Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, this universe, it's based not long after there was a war. So humanity a lot of them left Earth. A lot of countries went to specific places. So if I gathered correctly, Britain and that part of Europe went to Mars. The Russians went to Callisto. And other cultures, I believe Japan and other Pacific islands went out to the asteroid belt. And all of these different places, China sort of colonized the moon, and all of these different places decided that they didn't really want to have much to do with Earth anymore, and Earth sort of took exception to this. So there was a war, which, despite heavy losses on both sides, due to an insistence on using fighters. Which basically, climbing into a fighter basically meant you had an 80% chance of not coming back. But the Triplanetary Confederation, as they call themselves now, actually won that war because the UN stopped fighting them more than they actually really won it. The UN of Earth, that is, obviously. And since then, they've sort of finished the construction of 6 ships that were being built somewhere out system in orbit, called battle cruisers. And they're all named after battles where the odds were hopeless. So Thermopylae, Alamo, several others. These, now that the war's over, these battle cruisers, they're capable of travel further into space than your average ships are. And as a result, the Triplanetary Confederation has decided to expand outwards to explore new worlds and sort of find new colonies. Now, what they find when they get out there is that actually humanity is ahead of them. They find human colonies far-flung, you know, in impossible places where they shouldn't be. No one really knows why for a very long time in the series. But you know, you're coming across these human colonies who, you know, they've established their own society and so on. And not only are the Triplanetary Confederation, that's so hard to say, out there, the Lunar Republic has headed out there. And they've made alliances, and the UN's headed out there. They've got their trust territories. And sort of all of these three sort of solar system-based factions are all heading out. But the thing is that with the Triplanetary Confederation being so new relative to the other two factions, sort of Callisto believes that they know how to run it better than Mars does. Or, you know, they should be in charge rather than all of the planets being equal. You know, the asteroid belt is really struggling financially. So when the Lunar Republic comes along and offers them this possibility for sort of economic stability, you know, they're sort of tempted to turn on the rest of the Triplanetary Confederation. So there's this essence in this universe of you literally could be a captain on board your ship. You might be walking down the corridor, and your first officer might literally stab you in the back. This first officer that was assigned to you by Triplanetary Confederation headquarters. So, you know, when I started reading this, I got really, really excited about you know, the possibilities involved in this world. It's a very if I was to liken it to something, I think it would be Babylon 5. It's definitely got that military feel. It's got kind of the lasers being the kind of weapons that can, you know, cut things in half and so on. It's also got missiles. It's got a kind of hyperspace which works between Lagrange points. So there are certain areas in the solar system that are really hard to reach because Uranus has no Lagrange point between itself and its moons. So to get there is further than to getting to another solar system, because you have to do a hard burn from the nearest Lagrange point, which is Saturn. Probably, depending on orbital locations. So, you know, there's a lot of detail, and as you would expect after 38 books, you know, this guy's thought through a lot of things and really answered a lot of the questions that are out there.
Well, I tell you, kind of drill into we got these big settings like Killjoys or Battlecruiser Alamo. How do you take that kind of a setting and background, you know, which can be so diverse? And my God, 38 books, that's an immense amount of background material to digest. And how do you make it, you know, get that kind of feel and, you know, vibe at the gaming table? Well, let's take you first for Killjoys on that question.
Well, one of the things that the showrunners did right in the beginning was they put out a gazetteer. You can go on to killjoys.com right now, and there's an entire like planet guide, character guide. It shows you what things look like, how they're supposed to feel, how they talk. You know, so when a show or even a book series is that prolific, Ed, you were talking about the Alamo series. I've read 4 of the books, really good. And if you like those, I am a huge evangelist of the Galaxy's Edge series by Jason Anspach and Nick Cole. If you're a military guy, this will punch you right in the heart, like, and on multiple levels. But it's got a very Star Wars vibe to it as well. So
Cool.
The great thing about that series as well is those guys from back in the day are both avid D&D players and avid RPG guys. So there's a lot of stuff that they do. They have a guy that is a fan of the series that pushes a kind of like a wiki, so that, you know, if you wanted to game with this stuff and see what different things are like, or look up a character and stuff like that, you can do that. So I mean, a lot of these authors out there, you know, and you hear on multiple RPG shows all the time, you know, oh man, that this game was on rails, I couldn't do anything, this guy should write a novel. Well, some of these role-playing game guys are going out and they're writing novels, and you know, they're doing things to help kind of give that flavor of their universe at the table. So yeah, it's things like that make gaming in these universes, especially if you're enamored with a book or a TV show or something like that, very, very easy.
Yeah. Actually, I'm assuming it's my turn to answer the question now.
Hit it.
Please.
I can't take any credit whatsoever for making this universe livable, because Richard himself actually, you know, when we sat down and we talked about doing a role-playing game for the Alamo universe, Richard said, "Hey, I have been meaning to write a proper guide, just like the wiki you were just talking about, Walt. I've been meaning to write a proper guide for my universe for ages. You know, there's bits and pieces on my, you know, on my website, you know, that I can pull from and put something together. Can I please write, however you want me to present it, can I please write the material for this game?" And I obviously, well, maybe not obviously to you guys, but I have produced a number of expansive universes myself, including the Era of the Consortium SciFi universe. So I know how I present this sort of game. And as a result, you know, I gave him kind of the guidelines, which, you know, you give a page on each faction, so that a GM, when they're going through, you know, if they want to know about the faction's approach to, say, their relationship with other factions, or maybe their approach to sort of the people who are allowed to join them, or, you know, their sort of their laws or whatever, then all of that is written down on one page, and you literally just have to reference that as the GM. You can do it in the middle of a game. You got 2 paragraphs that say, oh, well, in general, the laws, you know, they're fairly lax. They let people carry weapons around on board their ships because they'd rather people were armed and therefore ready for if someone boards. But equally, anyone showing any hint of traitorous activity is pretty much executed on the spot, for example. So, you know, you give all of this information in such a way that it's A, readable if you're just reading through the book, and B, digestible and quick if you're a GM and you're going, what does this planet look like again? You know, you have an image, you have a brief description of what the landscape looks like, you have a brief description of local laws. Anything that the players might interact with is really the priority. And so he went away, you know, he put together this it's well over 100,000 words of material that he added to this book to make sure that it was faithful to sort of his universe. Because as you were saying, Walt, you know, a lot of these RPG guys, they're going out and writing novels. Well, Richard also is a massive, massive RPG fan. I actually met him at the UK Games Expo, which is the biggest gaming convention in the UK. And you know, we sat down and we had a chat, and yeah, he's been role playing for years and years and years. And he's now writing these novels, and he was so enthused about the possibility of making this game that I was just like, complete meeting of minds, because I love making games. I love the universe. I love working with people who are passionate. So it was all absolutely fantastic for me.
Hey, Chris, didn't you get your start? You started in gaming with Star Trek back in college days?
You mean just getting into role-playing gaming to begin with?
Yeah, way back in the day.
Star Trek was not technically my first, but it was. It took my love to a next level when I got the first edition of the original FASA game. That was the first time that I stayed awake all night and didn't realize it. It's like I put the book down to go to a bathroom break, and it was like 6 a.m. I had like done nothing for like 9-10 hours, but just sit and devour this book repeatedly. And I ran sessions of it for many years for many people, and it will always be a great love of mine.
What do you think that they did right there that helped, you know, make it so compelling and, you know, get the feel of the franchise in there?
They did their homework. I mean, it was a time. It was 1984, and you know, the episodes were just coming out on videotape, and before that, you know, especially for those of us that weren't near a major population center, you saw the episodes when you could, and if you weren't there to actually see them whenever they were broadcast, you missed them. And then even the ones you did get to see, you had to rely on memory. But these are clearly people that had just devoured the episodes beginning to end. And the attention to detail was fabulous. And at the time, I really appreciated like the extrapolations they had of things that weren't spelled out in the show at the time. And it was just intoxicating to find somebody that was that into Star Trek to the level I was, and had the same love and attention to detail. And then, of course, there's that fundamental magic of a role-playing game that they're saying, well, now here's this whole universe. Now you get to play in it, literally. and that was intoxicatingly wonderful.
I wonder if the Star Trek MMO is that kind of a charge for people, or if it's not really comparable, given all the changes and circumstances between then and now.
Well, my brother-in-law, who is one of the few people that can rival my love of Trek, swears by it. Is a big fan of it. Me, I'm almost 50. I hear all these terrible stories about all these about online gaming, and I just kind of figure I'll be the old man with a cane, and like the younger gamers will just come up and like pick on me and like knock my groceries out of my hands, and
Well, it depends on the. I have never played the Star Trek. I think it's Cryptic Studios does that one. They used to do City of Heroes, which is how
They did indeed.
Yeah, back in the day. At City of Heroes, you had one server you go to, which was good for in character role playing. If you wanted to go spend an hour pretending you actually were your version of Superman, that was the server. So that was the server you went to. Every other server, like all 12 of them. Yeah, it was, you're rolling the dice, what you're going to find. Sometimes you find people who, want to stay focused and do that. Sometimes people just want to talk about, whatever they're talking about. And I remember one time I found a guy with the same costume and a very similar name. And I walked up to him on the street and said, hey, buddy, it looks like we have a lot in common. Maybe we should crime fight together. And he said, man, I am so high right now. I just really can't handle anything.
I actually played World of Warcraft for 6 years.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I did a bit of MMO, and I found a fairly similar thing. Yeah, it's a dice roll who you run into, but as you do it sort of more and more, as you play it over time, you sort of gather up the people around you who sort of share your outlook on life, much as you do in real life, to be honest. The people who don't have the same priorities that you do sort of slip away, and people who sort of are interested hear about it, hear about this cool group of people who are doing whatever it is you're doing, and you get a bit of churn, but broadly, yeah, you start to build up a group of people who are interested in the same things. So yeah, I wouldn't be scared of online gaming. Most people don't even realize how old anyone else is anyway. At least not until the 12-year-old comes on voice chat. That said, I've always had a policy that I don't really care how old someone is as long as they can do their job. And that 12-year-old I'm referring to, first time he came on voice chat, everyone sort of died laughing. And then he basically contributed more to the group than anyone else. And it was just a case of, and who cares, right? If you're 12, if you're 50, if you're 60, I really don't care. If you're doing the job well, if you're helping other people do what they're supposed to be doing, and you're supporting the group, because World of Warcraft is very, very centered on sort of group play. Then I established that really it shouldn't matter, and I sort of carried that forward to the role-playing game table as well, because I'm proud to say that I've never had anyone sit down at my table who was not welcomed properly.
Oh, cool. Hey, wanted to touch on Starfinder, because that's kind of like the biggest sci-fi RPG, maybe in terms of its interest in players, this very instant. Jacob, you had a chance to recently read their latest release, Pact Worlds, right?
Yep.
What'd you think about that? Can you give us a mini review?
The Pact Worlds, first of all, has this amazing cover with the alien T-Rex on it. It's pretty good. It is pretty much the core setting for the Starfinder setting. It's the solar system that Galarian used to occupy, and in their setting, that world is now missing. Galarian, of course, being the planet that Pathfinder, the fantasy setting, takes place on. In its place is Absalom Station, which is pretty much, if you want your Babylon 5 or DS9 experience, that's where you go. It's a space station where all the races meet and greet and gather and share information, and from there go out and explore the vast unknown.
Okay.
So the Pact Worlds, yeah, it's basically describing all of the worlds of that particular solar system there, and it is pretty much the only major solar system that has gone into detail. Everything else they're going to pretty much leave up to to individual GMs of what you want to do with this.
So it's basically the gazetteer for the setting, or the closest you're going to get to a gazetteer for the setting.
Exactly. And much like the other books that have come out, like the Alien Archive, it's not just for game masters. There is a ton of player-based information in here as well. For each of the worlds, they have a new background or theme, which is integral to making player characters. Because not only do you choose your race and your class, but you also choose your theme. Like, you can be an icon or a celebrity or a bounty hunter, and those aren't your classes. Those are backgrounds and special trainings you've done.
Okay, so it sounds like you're pretty solid positive review for this one.
Yeah, it's a real good book. It's got plenty of information for both players and GMs who want to get more familiar with the Starfinder setting. It's an excellent resource.
Okay, cool. Speaking of books that just come out, Walt, tying back into your interest in Killjoys, you just released an adventure / mini setting for playing bounty hunters in the White Star universe, right?
Absolutely. When right around the time that Killjoys came out, White Star, the first kind of iteration of it came out, and I was like, this is great, because if a game has too much crunch, I'm immediately turned off. If it takes me 4 hours to create a character without an algorithm and a computer that is smarter than like the one that beats the master chess players, I don't have that kind of time anymore. So this really scratched my itch, because it did two things. It emulated Star Wars, and it was based on a D20 framework from way back in the day that just that made everything very easy to customize, just really cool. So I said, something? These are two great tastes that probably taste great together. So I started formulating a little bit of a MIDI setting, and I didn't want to release a setting book in the beginning because I wanted to gauge interest. So a couple years ago, the first adventure, which was called Hunter's Moon Ghost the Machine, and there was kind of like homage to bounty hunters, Star Wars, Star Trek. There's a very Star Trek-esque threat in that adventure. So it was a fun thing. It was very well received. It's still selling. So I mean, we obviously did something right. So I said, let's do a second one. And I wanted to go a little above and beyond. In the beginning, I was thinking I'll do 12 pages, and I did the initial push, and I said, well, what if the players do this and make their way through this, and they want to explore the rest of this? I mean, they're going to be right there. Why not do it? So the adventure starts out, you are basically hired by a big corporation that has lost a bit of cargo. And it turns out that the cargo that they lost is very dangerous. It's military-grade hardware that was meant to go to a planet to suppress uprisings. The nature of the technology is very volatile, so they need this recovered quickly and quietly. So in come these players, and they didn't want to experience bounty hunters because they didn't, it's a corporation. They wanted to spend as little money as possible on the thing they already spent a lot of money as possible to recover. So they bring in the bounty hunters. The bounty hunters go out to this planet, and the planet is in the midst of being salvaged because several corporations have tried to mine there, but the predators on the planet are so hostile that it was just not cost effective to work there anymore. So now the planet has all of these salvagers basically showing up, which was my nod to one of my favorite comics right now, which is called Salvagers by Bob Sally. And all these crews are working and moving and taking stuff to send back to the corporations. And here come these players, and they're looking for this thing. So there's a bunch of cool monsters in here, a lot of fun NPCs, a couple twists on some old favorites, especially like the Wild West Doctor. In the setting, the Doctor is an alien called a Husk. If you guys ever read Image Comics back in the day, Pitt? the big giant like hulking brute.
Yeah.
Jacob knows what I'm talking about. The Doctor like that is a female version of Pitt. So it's just fun little tropes. There's tons of huge maps. If folks want to check it out, they can go right to Hazard Studio store on RPG Now or drive through, and they can pick it up. And this one was big enough so where we're going to put it in print. So we're gonna it's the print is waiting to be proofed now, and as soon as I get it back, we'll get it on RPG store shelves.
Okay, what was the name again?
This one is called Hunter's Moon, and it's Gone but Not Forgotten.
Okay, and they can find that RPG Now or Drive Through RPG right
Absolutely, now. Yes.
And Ed, your game using the Era of the Empowered System for Battlecruiser Alamo, that is up on Kickstarter as we speak, right?
Yes, it is.
Whoa, I didn't know about this. Hold on, I got to go pledge.
Brilliant.
Well, they're 99% funded right now, so you might push them over to 100.
Funded right now because it's 99% funded as of this moment.
Well, Walt might be that last 1%. Walt, you're the 1%.
I'm looking right now. I'm waiting for the page to load. Can you get the books on this too? Because I've read 1 through 4.
Yeah, you can. Actually, he's not on the Kickstarter itself, but he's putting them on sale at some point in the very near future. So when that happens, I'll obviously update the Kickstarter. So, but the stuff that he did, for what it's worth, Walt, he describes it as the definitive guide to the Battlecruiser Alamo, the Triplanetary Confederation universe.
Sold.
So there we are.
All right, cool. Now, Chris, you had some announcements to make about your imprint, right?
Well, if you think we have time and you want to get into that, sure, I can talk. I can always talk about Go Show.
Well, I saw you had mentioned it on Facebook, so I figured we probably should. Mention it.
Right. Oh, that's right. Oh gosh. Well, yes. Although it would be in the best tradition of the Go Show to rip people off shamelessly and then skip town as banjo music plays. Yeah. Well, first of all, I just my heart is still full with all the wonderful, wonderful people. There are far more of them out there than I ever would have guessed that wanted to buy something with my name on it. And wow, the response was tremendous. And apparently, like, people want to buy my stuff, so I should probably go make some more stuff, right? And I sort of took stock as the Kickstarter kept funding, and it slowly started to sink in that now, for the first time in my career, I can do whatever I want with whoever I want, and that's a rush that took me about a week to get over. So I realized that these projects that I pitched years ago and got accepted by publishers, who then promptly shoved it down their release schedule or went out of business or stop putting out new product. Well, now is my chance to get them out in front of the people. So this 15-year backlog of ideas. I mean, the essential notion of World Defenders is something that came to me back in 2002, 2003. And so I'm slowly working my way through my back catalog of stuff I've always wanted to do. And I in response to some of the feedback we got on World Defenders, people were asking us, is this part of a setting? Are you guys going to do a setting? And while World Defenders was never meant to be anything other than as generic as possible within as much as I can make it, there is a setting that I want to do, and it's kind of different from anything that I've ever done before. But I've been thinking about doing a dark superheroes setting. It's in some ways post-apocalyptic, in some ways pre-apocalyptic, but it's called Twilight's Last Gleaming. And this me trying to put it out through Ghost Show, and hopefully you're on board with this, aren't you? We're doing this together, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes, and the wonderful people at Feigning Goat Games. Yes, it looks like we're finally going to be able to show Twilight's Last Gleaming to the people, and it's sort of a weird conglomeration of pop culture things that were popping around in my mind. I was rereading Captain America from his 60s return up until the early 80s. So I went from like Cap beating up on Hydra to Cap beating up on heroin dealers. Ran the whole gamut of it.
Chris, I don't mean to. You should read Captain America 600 out right now. It really reminded me of this idea you're talking about. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, okay, I will check that out then. Okay, but the thing that really struck me about that run was the Steve Englehart run, where Steve Englehart was dealing with Watergate, you know, the whole Secret Empire arc, where Captain America is trying to find out who's behind this international conspiracy, and in the end, they kind of almost 99% show you that it was Richard Nixon behind the whole thing. And it ends with this mysterious unnamed figure in the White House who has a little dog named Checkers and likes ketchup with cottage cheese, kills himself. And that sort of combined with my enduring love for British filmmaker Peter Watkins. And not enough people in America, heck, not enough people in the world know about Watkins films. But from the War Game to Culloden to the Gladiators, he's made some of the most important and vital films I've ever seen in my life. And I checked off a major box in my life. I finally got a hold of a film of his I had read about 35 years earlier called Punishment Park. And it's an alt history documentary about America that can't get out, that refuses to get out of Vietnam and starts using some of the Cold War era, if the communists are about to take over the country, laws that really existed, like the McCarran Act. And so it was one part Englehart, one part Peter Watkins, and one part just the general feeling of that late 60s, early 70s era that has always struck with me. And so it all sort of coalesced in the question of what if it had been the superheroes? What if it had been a superhero that uncovered Watergate? And what if it was, this overwhelmingly popular World War II hero, old-fashioned punch the Nazis in the face kind of guy, the kind of patriotic guy you would expect would take down Nixon? But instead of, it being, hey, the superheroes saved us again, this guy starts believing his own press clippings and basically seizes power of the government. And it's a few decades after it's happened. And basically all the bad things that were happening in the early 70s are still with us, and they've only gotten worse. And all the wonderful things that happened to us because we basically we didn't have a large scale war going on from like 1940. America didn't have a major military commitment going on from like 73 onward, haven't gone to pass, and things are falling apart, and America is becoming more and more fascistic, and not fascist in this. I mean, truly fascist. I mean, in the sense that if you criticize the president, you disappear the next day. And so it's dropping players in that setting and giving them a chance to, well, do a number of things, save yourselves, save your country, save the world. But, just being able to play around with some really, really dark and adult and mature material. I'm best known as the guy that made the Primate Patrol. And believe me, if I die tomorrow and my legacy is monkey superheroes, I'll go to my eternal reward happy with that. But ever since my career took a turn last summer, I kind of want to show people that I can do other things. And really, at this point in my career, after 20 years, I want to do different things. So I'm going to take a shot at doing some dark superhero stuff. And right now, our current plan is we're going to start off by releasing a piece of it first of all. I right now I'm leaning toward doing like the World War II stuff in this, because I seem to have gotten some good notices for Golden Age, and this is me kind of getting back to that era and giving you my darker, more me take on all that material. And I hope it's something that you folks will like. And if you do, then we will do some more stuff with Twilight's Last Gleaming. And if you folks don't like it, you can mock me mercilessly online for years to come, because really getting a little old making fun of me for noir. I think I really need a whole new way to embarrass myself. I really, really, really need something new, humiliating to be associated with. So yeah, so I don't know which way it'll go, but I'm the guy that kind of didn't expect this first Kickstarter to succeed. So I'm probably not the guy to predict how this is all going to go.
Well, quick question.
Yes.
When do we want to announce, the basic project pitch on that? We're thinking a couple weeks, couple months.
Well, I have to sit down and write it. So,
all right. Maybe we should talk offline. Coming soon, TBD.
Yes.
Yes. I will be glad to draw for this if you want me.
I was hoping you'd say that. Yes. Because I can't say that I'm putting the band back together because but I'm putting together the band that I've always wanted. This is gonna be like a Live Aid, Band Aid kind of thing for me. This is gonna be I'm gonna ask everybody I've ever wanted to, and I may get hysterical laughter in return, but I want to bring in all the people I've ever wanted to work with on this and see what we can jam and come up with.
Well, I just like I said, Captain America 600 right now. Captain America gets frozen in ice again by. I know. And he winds up,
where his last words, what are the odds?
He winds up in an alternate future where the bad guys have taken over, and he has to lead the rebellion of scrappy punks and animal people to overthrow.
So 2099.
Very similar, and at the end of it, they're like, "Well, we can't hold things. We can't hold things together without you, Captain. You got to be king. You're be king of America." So he's king of America, and then everything just falls apart terribly.
Is this the run that's being written by Ta-Nehisi Coates?
I thought it was Mark Waid writing it.
Is it?
Yeah, and then everything goes horribly wrong with Captain America as king, and he realizes he has to go back in time and stop, what happened that sent him into the future, and winds up sacrificing himself. It's a really great read. I just spoiled it for everybody, but yeah, it kind of reminded me of sort of the dark take on heroes in the future. And let me see right now. There have been so many Captain America 600s. You just Google that and you get like 3 different things. Marvel's now doing legacy issue numbering as well as regular issue numbering. Like if you pick up a comic, it's issue 16 in this run, but there's a legacy number in the left-hand corner, so you're actually reading issue 600 or 719 or whatever.
Well, comics' great failing is they always just make way too much sense. I'm glad Marvel is addressing that.
Yeah, you got to introduce some absurdity into there. All right, you know what? I'm off by 100. It's Captain America 700. By Mark Waid, came out on Comixology yesterday. And it's Mark Waid, so it's amazing. But it's poignant and sad, and it's I'd recommend it to anybody who's into Captain America. So anyway, that's about our time. So check out Walt's Adventure. What was the name again, Walt?
It's Hunter's Moon, Gone but Not Forgotten.
Okay, and that's on one bookshelf right now. Email us to get for the drawing for the White Star Galaxy edition. Ed, Battlecruiser Alamo Kickstarter is on Kickstarter right now. It's funded. Thanks to Walt. Thank you, Walt.
Congratulations.
That's right.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Walt.
Sir.
Thank you, everyone. It's funded, so I can go home now, right? I don't know.
Just you just turn your jumpsuit before you leave the Zeppelin, and everything's cool, man.
Yeah, no. Battlecruiser Alamo. It's on Kickstarter. Walt is obviously a fan of the books. If that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is.
All right. Any last closing thoughts from anybody? I guess not. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the Banff Pod. Oh, wait. Hey, one last thing. I promised a friend of mine I would give him a shout out. Dagon's Bones on Kickstarter. You've got like 8 more days. They are halfway funded. It's a fun Cthulhu-themed dice game. And they got a video up there. They're going for 9,000. Oh, they're over 50%. 7 days left, so check it out from Utility Games. And on that happy note, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks, folks. Catch you next time.
Pew, pew.
Thanks for having me.